Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Rank where I climb the Online Series 12 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Today we're trying out a very fun Yveltal Zacian team. The team is relatively standard, but the main reason I wanted to feature it is because it has Sneasel, which is a Pokemon that I haven't used in the channel for quite a while and definitely not in Series 12. So this was built and piloted by a player called Toots, who finished in the top 8 of the Taiwan National Championships a couple of weekends ago. So huge thank you to him for the team. I've linked his Twitter down in the description below, as well as a rental and a paste for the team if you want to try it out yourselves. So as always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps in the description below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please show support by leaving a like. I'd really appreciate it. And in honor of us using Sneasel today, I want to know what your favorite non-evolved Pokemon to use in competitive play is down in the comment section below. I think for me, Porygon 2 has really been a pretty big staple, so I lean towards that throughout the years, but let me know yours down there, and yeah, let's talk about the team. So, we first have to talk about one of the really cool components of this team, which of course is the Sneasel. The idea of Sneasel here is so that you are able to, first of all, be a really fast Fake Out user with Inner Focus, right? So you won't be flinched by opposing Fake Out users, and you get access to some really nice moves actually. Fake Out, Icy Wind, Fake Tears, and Foul Play. Now, Sneasel is really valuable as a Fake Tears user because in this format, there's so many Prankster Pokemon that like to use Fake Tears, whether it be Whimsicott or Grimmsnarl, but the problem is you can't actually use Fake Tears on opposing Dark-type Pokemon, right? So that means you can't use it onto opposing Yveltal, onto opposing Incineroar, onto opposing Grimmsnarl, and those Pokemon are all somewhat common in this format, right? So the idea is with Sneasel, you're already really fast anyway. You actually outspeed all the 3 Pokemon I just mentioned naturally, so you can Fake Tears those, and then the idea is that you combo it with Yveltal, right? So Yveltal's slower than the Sneasel here, so Fake Tears, then Yveltal Dynamaxes, and then just Max Airstreams or Max Darknesses things for a KO, right? So this combo in itself is really, really powerful. Sneasel's also got, a surprising amount of speed at 252. You hit 183, and with base 115, right, you actually outspeed so many things in the format. Of course, you're not outspeeding like the Calyrexes, the Zacians, and the Elekis, but almost everything else in the format you will outpace, right? And so that's a really important benchmark. And notably, you do outspeed things like Tornadus as well as Thundurus, which are fairly common in this format. So Sneasel and Yveltal in itself is a really strong combination and lead duo for this team, right? Because you have fast Fake Out, you have Fake Tears into max move immediately, and against things that are like in the base 100 range where like Yveltal gets outsped by, Sneasel can Icy Wind and then set up Yveltal for a KO while Yveltal's also able to outpace them. So yeah, Sneasel's really cool for a lot of reasons, and I think Dual Dark is also really valuable into a format where Grimmsnarl is really common because Grimmsnarl is just really annoying, especially when you don't know what kind of moveset it is, right? You don't know if it's going to go for Trick or, go for something like a Scary Face or Thunder Wave, and so you have Sneasel, Yveltal, and Incineroar, and so it means that the Grimmsnarls can't go for like priority attacks onto our side of the field with as much ease, and I think that's really valuable in a format like this where Grimmsnarl just adds so much like kind of uncertainty because yeah, these days, like, I'm always worried about Trick Lagging Tail onto my max option, right? But having Yveltal as one of our main max options means we don't have to worry about that as much. So that's the main idea behind this strategy. Here you've got just classic Eleki, but it is actually naive here, and so the idea is that you do a little bit more damage with extreme speed. This is one of your primary max options. Of course, you can go for Max Strike with it. Of course, keep in mind here that it's slower than Sneasel. I had a practice game when I was getting used to the team where I was like, oh yeah, Sneasel, Fake Tears, then you just use your special attacker to KO things, but of course Eleki's faster than Sneasel, so don't just Fake Tears and, combo it with Eleki unless, like, you're trying to set it up for the subsequent turn, right? Because obviously Fake Tears will go after Eleki if you have these two out next to each other. So this is very classic T-Bolt, Electro Web, and the idea is you have, one speed control move here that you can use that also, isn't immune to, or ground types aren't immune to, right? So extreme speed means that you get max strike off. That's valuable for chipping things and of course dropping your opponent's speed as well. To round out the team, you've got Zacian here. This is a very bulky variant, and so we've seen a lot of different bulky Zacian spreads these days, right? And so there are a lot of different ways you could approach it. We've seen Adamant used as well, but this is just a really good utility spread where, you're faster than still pretty much everything other than like opposing Zacians and Calyrexes, right? And of course Regieleki, but you have enough bulk to survive attacks that otherwise would give you some trouble. And because this team has like dual Fake Out, and because Zacian is a little bit bulkier, it's running Substitute here as well. And so Substitute's one of those moves that, sometimes players just don't expect, and it can secure you a game immediately when your opponents don't see it coming. And with Fake Out pressure, it's a lot harder to deny free substitutes from Zacian as well. Incineroar here is pretty standard as well. It is safety goggles with taunt and parting shot. And so the idea with goggles here is like Amoonguss is always annoying, right? Especially Focus Sash Amoonguss. And Amoonguss under Trick Room is even more annoying. And so this Incineroar can completely wall opposing Amoongusses, and that's where taunt is really handy as well. This is really good in denying Trick Room. This team is rather fast-paced and offensive, and so if Trick Room goes up against it, like, it can be kind of annoying. But that's why you do have Incineroar for taunt, right? And goggles to ignore opposing Amoongusses. And you actually have 44 speed EVs as well, so you actually will be faster than a lot of other Incineroars often, meaning that you can fake out before they're able to move. And finally, we've got Gastrodon here. So this is just classic bulky Gastrodon, good mix between HP defense and special defense, and just the classic leftovers and Ice Beam, Earth Power, Yawn Protect set. So the value of Gastrodon on this team is twofold. First of all, if you don't have Gastrodon, everything else is super weak to like water type attacks, right? And it means that a Dynamax Kyogre can like one-shot almost everything. So Gastrodon, exists to, one, dissuade opposing Kyogres from just coming out and sweeping, and two, Yawn Pressure is always really nice, right? Like, Gastrodon can actually be a really effective lead into teams that don't have ways to like effectively get a one-hit knockout onto it, and then you can just spread Yawn very quickly. And something like Incineroar and Gastrodon might seem passive, but you can go for early Yawn Pressure against teams that don't have a lot of like high damage up into Gastrodon and stall out your opponent's Dynamax that way. So a lot of different ways you can play with this team. I think like Sneasel, Yveltal with Zacian and a fourth is one of the main default modes that I've played with in my experience with it. But you could also go with Yveltal plus Electivire, for example, or Zacian plus Electivire. This is just like fast-paced Electro Web into, really powerful attacks immediately. Sneasel into Electivire, Sneasel into Zacian could work as well. But that doesn't have as much synergy because these Pokemon are already faster, so don't really thrive off Icy Wind as much. And then they don't get to take advantage of Fate Tears as much. And of course, one other thing to talk about Sneasel here is it synergizes nicely with Yveltal because of Dark Aura, and so Foul Play does more damage as well. So yeah, that's it for the team here. Sneasel, of course, being the main star, so hoping to at least showcase it in one game today. But thanks so much as always for watching, and let's get into the battles. First game of the day, and there is an Electivire on the team. That's really cool. Otherwise, Groudon, Grimm, Zacian, Incineroar, Thundurus. So this feels like an Yveltal game to me. Like, I could go with Sneasel Yveltal, which is fairly powerful here in my opinion, and then just Incineroar Zacian. I think Gastrodon is actually really powerful here with Yawn as well, but it would change up how I'd actually approach the game. So if I were to bring Gastrodon, I'd probably want to lead it, but I think this lead is acceptable, because we could just like Fake Tears Max Darkness, and Incin and Zacian are both really strong to clean up the game as well. So I mean, like I described when covering the team earlier, when I, look through the lead matchups, like, I first want to just gauge, okay, Sneasel and Yveltal, do they have a good counter to it? Because if not, it's really just quite powerful, right? For example, we have a faster Fake Out here, and, like, I can just go for Fake Tears into a max move from Yveltal immediately. If they lead Grimmsnarl, we can just go for Fake Out plus the max Airstream immediately onto it, which is pretty good. And that way we deny its screens, right, which is fairly valuable. I think here, if you're my opponent, the clear max option, in my opinion, is Thundurus. And so that's why Gastrodon's actually really interesting to me, right? Because Thundurus is, even with electric terrain, it will still fall asleep because it's not grounded from the Yawn. So I could actually, like, play a little bit more passively in this matchup, theoretically, and lead something like Gastrodon plus, I don't know, Yveltal, maybe even Sneasel. Like, normally Incineroar Gastrodon's pretty powerful as a lead, but here it would activate Defiant on Thundurus if it is Defiant Thundurus, and so that would allow Thundurus to snowball a lot quicker, especially against a relatively passive lead, so we wouldn't want to do that. But just another possibility here in this matchup, in my opinion. So let's see. We're going to go with Grimm and Thundurus. Okay. I think I lean towards turn 1 Fake Out Max Airstream Grimm, and then turn 2 I can, like... Oh... You know what we could do here? I can go for Icy Wind into Foul Play. Because Icy Wind would activate the Defiant, and then I get a Life Orb boosted, Dark Aura boosted, +2 Foul Play onto Thundurus, and I outspeed it. I'm actually really down for that. Yeah, I think that's actually stronger here. Because, like, otherwise I was thinking, okay, turn 1 we could Fake Out Max Airstream the Grimmsnarl, but if Thundurus then Max Airstreams us, next turn is a little bit awkward. I guess I could Icy Wind into maybe Max Darkness. But then if you're Assault Vest Thundurus, that causes a lot of issues for me. I also could have just gone, I guess, Fake Tears plus Max Darkness Thundurus here immediately. I guess that's one thing to consider. Like if Grimmsnarl here, I don't know, goes for... Actually, because we're dark, dual dark here, Grim can't go for any priority onto us, which is really good. Yeah. So the only thing they can really go for here that helps them is actually a Reflect. If they don't go for a Reflect on turn 1, and we knock out Thundurus, I really think I just win the game from there. So let's see. Because then Incineroar is just such a nice switch in. We could even look towards maxing it potentially in this matchup. And they set up light screen. Okay, Sneasel, don't miss the icy wind. Please. One time. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay? That looks like Assault Vest to me, but yeah, this is the whole point, right? Now Thundurus is at +2 attack. We've got Life Orb Foul Play from Yveltal. Goodbye. And that is what this duo can do. You can just get knockouts on Thundurus. I think the dual dark typing here also really highlighting its value because, you know, normally I'd be worried about Grim going for something like a Trick Iron Ball, Trick Lagging Tail, Thunder Wave, Scary Face. But now we just eliminated my opponent's max option, right? Which is obviously really good. And it's actually Groudon coming out immediately. Okay. Works for me. I think with Groudon coming out instead of Zacian here, this honestly should be a wrap, because now Sneasel can apply Fake Tears pressure onto Grim. So we can go Fake Tears onto Grimmsnarl, Dynamax, and Max Airstream onto the Grimmsnarl. What the Max Airstream accomplishes is it allows us to outpace the Zacian in the back, right? And so this is, of course, one of the other great things about using Sneasel on this team. I think so many Fake Tears users that you might be used to seeing or using in this format are from Prankster Pokemon, right? And so the downside with that is that you can't go for Fake Tears onto opposing Dark-type Pokemon when you're using the Prankster Pokemon. So here, Sneasel is actually just really fast naturally and doesn't need Prankster to move before its opponents. Beautiful. Okay. This should get the KO even through Light Screen, I would think. Beautiful. And, you know, you might be wondering, okay, why don't you just target, that was a crit, but I really don't think that mattered. Maybe it does, honestly, though, if Grimmsnarl is like max HP, max special defense, but the best they could accomplish here is maybe getting a Spirit Break off and Groudon getting like a Stone Edge off, but even then, I think we're in okay shape, and they're just going for a Rock Slide. Cool. I targeted the Grim there mainly because, yeah, I like, one, you know, Groudon there might have Protect. The Grim there is essentially a guaranteed knockout in my eyes. It's actually Life Orb Groudon, which is pretty interesting. Okay. So I expect Zacian here as the final one. And given that they have Life Orb, right, then I think the likelihood of them having the ability to go for Protect is a little bit higher here. But that's okay. Pretty easy for me to now pivot out into my Incineroar, get a quick Intimidate off onto both of their Pokemon. I guess the question here, like, I could also just stay in here, right, and just go for Fake Tears plus Max Darkness. But they could protect Groudon here, Behemoth Blade into Yveltal. I think I'm fine switching out into my Incineroar here to get an Intimidate. And I think Max Darkness onto their Groudon is fine. Essentially with Intimidate support here, this game actually isn't one yet because their Zacian can theoretically get a lot of crits, and if it's faster than mine, that's a problem. But the idea here is we get guaranteed damage on a Groudon. My Zacian should be able to finish off their Groudon before they can move, which is pretty good, and then Incineroar can actually just Flare Blitz their Zacian for a KO. They end up not going for a Protect here with Groudon. That's fine. That just KOs, actually. Was that a crit? Oh my goodness, yeah, okay. That one definitely mattered, given that the light screen was up, because we didn't get Fake Tears off onto it. So, one of the games where everything kind of just went our way, you know, but I think, like, even if, you know, Groudon gets an attack off there, yeah, maybe you read into the Incineroar switch and you Precipice Blades, but then I have Incineroar plus Zacian, right, which is just really powerful, because I can just fake out the Zacian slot, Behemoth Blade the Groudon slot. Behemoth Blade should finish off Groudon. Their play would be then to double protect and then hope to crit my Zacian the subsequent turn. But as long as you don't get a crit onto me, we should have this basically locked up. So, yeah. Either way, though, I'm just glad to see what show off what the Sneasel plus the Yveltal combination can do. It would have been nicer to honestly not get the crits because I think we had such a big advantage in the early game that we didn't really need to rely on it at all. Also, with Life Orb Groudon, I'm curious what kind of like EV spread they had, but we can actually fake out Zacian and go for sub here because, you know, they would probably want to protect here, and sub is always just super free. So that's one of the other nice things about having substitute Zacian on this team. You have dual fake out between the Incineroar and the Sneasel, so it's pretty easy to set up substitutes because you pivot fake out in and out, in and out. So yeah, What else to say about that game? I actually do want to do the damage calc against Grimmsnarl, because I assume the +2 Airstream would KO through Light Screen, but I guess I don't know that for sure. Yeah, so looking at the damage calc, if they were actually max HP and max special defense, then it is not a KO there, so the crit does help me a little bit. But yeah, I'm not, like, the only thing that Grim could really do there would basically be a Spirit Break, and then if by not KOing the Grim, it actually means that the next turn it's a little bit more passive for them because they don't have Zacian out on the field to apply as much offensive pressure. So then what I could angle to do is go, for example, for a Fake Tears plus a Max Darkness onto the Groudon slot instead. Of course, then they could protect and then Spirit Breaks. I'd have to think about that a little bit more. But yeah, the thing is, most Grimmsnarls aren't like this specially defensive, right? And so, for example, if you only have 80 special defense EVs, then it is a guaranteed KO there, right? So it comes down to how much special defense investment and how bulky the Grimmsnarl is. But it's not like Yveltal was going to faint there to a Spirit Break anyway. So yeah, but obviously getting back-to-back crits, really lucky. But I felt pretty good about that game since we were able to just knock out their Dynamax Pokemon without any issue, and we had a very healthy Incineroar and Zacian for the end game against 2 physical Pokemon. So yeah, either way though, we take those. So let's keep things going. Alright, next game here, and we are up against just Yveltal Zacian with Electivire, Landorus, Incineroar, and Gastrodon. I mean, Sneasel's really interesting to me here. Our teams are really similar, obviously, right? It's like, what, 5 to 6 same mons? They just have Landorus while I have Sneasel. I could go with the Electivire route as well. Electivire's actually kind of interesting to me. But, like, the thing with Sneasel is I can just Icy Wind. The problem is if they lead Electivire, right, they could, like, Electro Web. So if I lead my Electivire, what am I worried about? Mainly their Landorus, I would say. Something like Electivire Landorus from their end is kind of concerning, I think. They do have Gastrodon as a potential switch-in is the thing, right? I'd love to showcase Sneasel here. Icy Wind's also pretty valuable. It's just that we're slower than, like, Electivire Zacian, right? Yeah, Electivire Zacian's actually really concerning, so I feel compelled to lead with my Electivire here in this, yeah, at least. Electivire, Sneasel, Yveltal, Zacian seems okay. The only problem is, like, I'd love to bring Incineroar into this matchup, because the Intimidate's pretty good into Zacian and Landorus on their end, obviously. And, like, Gastrodon's actually somewhat interesting as a lead option here, because we can use it to yawn immediately, but there's so much just pure offense from my opponent's end. That is a little bit scary, but Gastrodon's actually quite good into, Electivire and the Landorus here, so maybe it's actually not a bad bring. And they do go with Electivire Zacian, yeah, that's exactly why I was nervous to lead with Sneasel plus Yveltal. So this is a little bit better, right? I have Fake Out Pressure on turn 1. One of the big questions is how fast their Electivire is. We're max speed here, so, like, I could just Fake Out Max Lightning turn 1. They might have Electro Web. They might max their Electivire, which is scary. The other play I'm thinking about is actually Fake Out and then Electro Web here. I'm a little bit nervous to commit my Dynamax to Electivire here, especially if they actually brought the Gastrodon back. So, yeah, I'm going to click Fake Out into Electro Web here. It might just be a double protect coming out, which would make sense. Yeah, okay. So we confirmed that they're not Assault Vest Electivire at least, which is good information. They also, yeah, this is a nice defensive play. If I Dynamax there, then I would have just got him very little out of my max, right? Although, like, a Dynamax max strike into the Electivire slot there would have been really hype. So now what do I want to do? So much about this is, like, who do I think wants to Dynamax, right? I could now Dynamax Electivire and just max Lightning them. It's not a guaranteed KO onto Zacian, which is my problem. Like, Electro Web into Icy Wind is interesting, right? Because, yes, I might lose a lot right now, but then I could actually Dynamax Yveltal with a little bit more comfort. So, yeah, I'm down for this. We're going to go for Electro Web and Icy Wind just for, like, a lot of speed control here to enable Yveltal a lot better. Ah, it's Quick Attack, though. And they win the speed tie. That is super frustrating. Okay. Because the thing is, if I get the Icy Wind off there, like, we get all the speed control I'm looking for, right? But yeah, I end up losing the speed tie. And they have quick attack, which is a really cool tech. Okay. So we know they're max speed Eleki now. I mean, I could just go into my Zacian now, because Yveltal's not outspeeding the Eleki at max speed. Yeah, but we will with Zacian. Okay. Basically, if they didn't win the speed tie there, then I'd get Icy Wind off, and then I can actually bring in Yveltal and then, like, start max airstreaming with it while Thunderbolting the Zacian slot. Or I could consider, like, max Darkness Thunderbolt. But I can just, like, really get good speed control. Now the problem is they can, like, switch out relatively easily. So the question is, what do I expect in the back, right? I think Yveltal being one of the two is definitely a possibility. I could see them switching their Eleki out. The question is, like, do I ever think about Dynamaxing here? I do have a Magnet T-Bolt, but I'm not sure that actually KOs. They're at -1, -1. I could see Landorus coming in as well, which makes me scared. Okay, here I'm down to just Behemoth Blade Eleki and Thunderbolt into the Zacian. Eleki switches, that's fine. Into Landorus, that's fine. Okay. Ideally, they, like, knock out my Eleki so I get a free switch it into Yveltal. But they're gonna protect. That's also okay with me. This is actually an interesting angle to Dynamax my Eleki now in Max Lightning, but I don't think it's worth it. I don't have Sucker Punch on Yveltal, and then their Max Eleki would kind of crush me in the end game. But it's a big Behemoth Blade, obviously. Basically, the idea of maxing Eleki here is I could angle for a double knockout immediately. Max Lightning onto this, Behemoth Blade onto this. Then they'll have Yveltal to Dynamax with Eleki, and then they can max either of those, which is potentially scary. Like, ideally, I want to max Yveltal in this game, right? Problem is I'm at -1 speed with Eleki. I actually want to switch Eleki out into Yveltal here, and then Blade into the Landorus slot. Maybe I did have to Dynamax Eleki here, honestly, just to get the KO. We get Yveltal out. They switch Landorus back out, okay. And they brought Incineroar, so they dropped Yveltal in this matchup, okay. I actually could max my Eleki then, honestly. I think. This is where the Icy Wind... Oh, well, no, there's Zacian still at -1, right? So my Yveltal actually will outpace it next turn. But it's like, do I really want to max Yveltal if I'm eating a Behemoth Blade onto it? Actually, Sacred Sword. Okay, that's a little bit better. The thing is, both of my max options are pretty low HP at this point in the game, right? Like, you could just fake out Zacian, max Behemoth Blade it. You could easily read into my Zacian switching out into Eleki here. You could pivot out into your own Eleki, which concerns me slightly. I think here I'm going to go for Protect into Behemoth Blade onto their Zacian. Okay. Get Protect off. Yep, they didn't go for Fake Out. That's really interesting. If it's Parting Shot onto Zacian, that's actually really bad news for me. It's decent damage onto their Zacian. Blade onto Yveltal. I would think it's Parting Shot into Zacian here. Oh, but they double up onto Yveltal. Okay. That's actually a really big deal. That is a really big deal. Do I think Life Orb Max Airstream KOs the Zacian is the question here. I do have Foul Play as well, right? Life Orb Foul Play. But But basically, like, I want to get the speed advantage against their Regieleki, so what I'm thinking is we Dynamax here, we go for Life Orb Airstream onto the Zacian slot, we switch in the Eleki and give Eleki the speed boost, so I don't have to play around speed ties around our Regielekis. Because I think the fact that we speed tie is really, really hard for me here, so I'm trying to do my best to prevent speed ties from being relevant here. Zacian could just protect, that's fine. I want to cycle out the Intimidate. The goal is to outspeed Eleki consistently, right? Because at this point in the game, Eleki might actually be their best max option. Especially because they didn't bring Yveltal either, right? The only downside is I took so much damage on my Yveltal already. Okay, so they're not going to protect Zacian. This is Life Orb, Modest, Max, or not Modest, Timid, Airstream, and it is enough to KO. Okay, good. Because the idea is, okay, if you go for Parting Shot here, Eleki is faster. I guess the problem, though, is then they can just fake out my Eleki next turn, which is problematic. Yep. Interesting, they Parting Shot into the Eleki slot, though. Okay, so Yveltal's still looking pretty healthy. I think it has to be the Eleki coming back out, and then you have Eleki plus Incineroar. So then you have Eleki plus Incineroar. We know your max speed Eleki. The interesting thing, though, is if you set up Electric Terrain, my Eleki then can take advantage of that as well, and I have this speed boost right now, right? So this is really coming down to the wire. Really fun game, though, honestly. Let's see. +1 speed, but we're still slower. We're at +2 speed, -1 special attack. The obvious play this turn is for Incineroar to just click Fake Out into Eleki to Dynamax, and then maybe Max Lightning. The main thing I'm worried about is them... I mean, their Life Orb, we saw Electro Web. So I expect this to just be like the... I mean, do you have Max Airstream or Extreme Speed, and do you go for it is the question. Because then we have to deal with the speed tie on turn 2. But I think here I'm going to just Max Guard and Protect here. The other consideration is playing a little bit more aggressively this turn. So, because this is like fairly obvious. But they don't Dynamax their Eleki. Oh, okay, interesting. Which means I can Electro Web with a lot more ease this next turn, which is good. So they Fake Out into the Eleki slot. Yep. And just Thunderbolt into Yveltal. Okay, I honestly think that works out really well for me, because now I'm faster, so I can Electro Web plus Max Darkness. The other interesting consideration is just to Airstream. The other thing to think about here is, like, Eleki could just Max Guard, right? As you bring in Landorus. But I'd be okay with that, I think. I think here I want to Airstream into Incineroar and Electro Web, because I think it's my obvious place to target down the Eleki. And I think, actually, if I were them, I would pivot Eleki out into Landorus right now. Yeah. But they're going to go for the Dynamax. Okay, that's fine, I guess. Because, like, the idea is I'm really dropping the Eleki speed, right? And at this point, Zacian Behemoth Blade from my end. Oh, I like that play a lot. I think that's really smart. Yeah, Max Incineroar. I should have talked about this as an option earlier. And they go for Protect. Yeah. That's why I also wanted to Airstream here, by the way, right? Because I want to make sure I outpace the Eleki next turn. And then we have Zacian in the back, which can deal a lot of damage to all of my opponent's Pokemon right now. That's a fantastic Dynamax, though, because I think if you don't find that play, we're in really good shape regardless of what they go for this turn. This was like the one play that I think would give them a nice advantage. And Airstream doesn't do that much, but I obviously have Sacred Sword with the Zacian in the back. But, okay. So they're going to go for Flare here, presumably onto Eleki, and that should KO, right? Yes. So now I have a fast Yveltal, I have Foul Play, I get a free switch into Zacian, they have Intimidates all around. So we get to bring in Zacian. Like, the obvious play here is for them to switch out their Regieleki out into the Landorus slot, right? And you can actually just Max Guard as well with the Incineroar, which is scary. The thing is, our Yveltal's really speeding out. Like, we're at +2, so we outpace the Eleki. We can one-shot that. We can one-shot Landorus. We know Eleki just protected. I have Substitute as well. So So, like, Behemoth Blade onto Eleki here should KO it, or the Landorus switch in, right? You know what they can do, though? It's like, if I were them, I would switch Eleki out into Landorus and max Strike. But you could, like, max Guard Incineroar this turn. I don't know, that'd be kind of shocking to me, though. Okay, I'm willing to make the read. I'm gonna Sacred Sword and Oblivion Wing Incineroar here. Yeah, Eleki switches. Okay, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. So this should, unless Incineroar max guards, but even if Incineroar max guards here, it's fine. And now this is what I was trying to play around this whole game, right? Which was boosting my Yveltal speed to outpace the Regieleki. And they don't max guard. Beautiful. Okay. I want your bulky berry here. Sacred Sword should get the KO. No berry. Excellent. That should be game over. Because now Eleki comes back out. I can Dark Pulse Eleki, Behemoth Blade Landorus. So this was a really intense game. I think, like, both of us were in slightly weird positions where we, like, were a little bit hesitant to just go for Dynamax, right? Because it was kind of hard. And that's why I really wanted to be hesitant about Dynamaxing on turn 1 of the battle, because so much about this game was actually, like, enabling Yveltal for success, right? Even though it doesn't look like that apparent, like, in team preview immediately. Because Yveltal's so weak into Eleki, into Zacian, but if you give it speed boost, this thing can be an absolute monster. So we're at +2 now. We will outspeed Regieleki, so I can just go for Dark Pulse now onto Eleki, and then Behemoth Blade onto Landorus-Therian. And that should just be a double KO now. Okay, Landorus protects. That's fine. We know you're not Scarf on the Regieleki. Beautiful. There's Life Orb Dark Pulse. Onto Eleki. Cool. And now it's just a 2v1 against Landorus. Perfect. Yeah, because Landorus, like, Yveltal in this matchup can actually be really good. I think the really critical thing was being able to Airstream and then get my Eleki out and give that the speed boost as well. I think that put me in a much better position. So, yeah. Pretty pleased about how I played this overall, but it was definitely scary, especially with the leads. And, yeah, like, unfortunately, Sneasel went out pretty quickly, right? They had Quick Attack, and I ended up losing the speed tie between the Eleki, so it denied me an Icy Wind. But in the end, I'm not sure the Icy Wind miss mattered that much, since they could switch out to pivot out anyway. And importantly, we already got them to, you know, -1 on Zacian, so Yveltal could take advantage of it a little bit more. I think Icy Wind hit would have been a little bit easier, because I could bring out Yveltal and then just Dynamax that immediately and put on a lot more pressure. The problem for me in this game was that I had to, like, take 50% of damage onto Yveltal, right, before I could even do anything with it. But overall, we end up winning here. But it goes to show how even though, like, if Yveltal maybe doesn't look amazing in the matchup, it can still be really valuable if you position it correctly, and it's all about speed at the end of the day. So, yeah, let's look for a third. Third game of the day, and it's a very, very similar matchup to that previous one. But they don't have Incineroar, which is interesting, so no Intimidate. I don't know, I'm really intrigued by Gastrodon here. Like, I didn't bring it in the previous game. I feel like my opponent doesn't have a super safe way around it. And, like, Yawn is just so strong here as well. It's like, I don't know, I could drop Sneasel and Eleki here. What does Sneasel accomplish for me, right? It's a fake tears into, like, Landorus or Yveltal, or into Rotom, honestly. So it's not bad. But the same problem exists here, where if my opponent leads Eleki plus Zacian, I think I'm in a pretty bad spot. So I think Sneasel didn't really do that much for me in the last game. I'm down for Eleki Gastrodon as a lead this time around with Yveltal Zacian. Because basically what this allows me to do is, like, Sneasel doesn't apply as much pressure, right? The only thing I could accomplish with it in the previous game was an Icy Wind, but in this game, by replacing it for Gastrodon, Gastrodon can just, like, fish for Yawn, and even as a max option, Gastrodon here isn't terrible, right? But I really value Yawn here because, like, a lot of my opponent's main max options are all not grounded, right? Landorus, Yveltal, Rotom, so even if they set up Electric Terrain, like, there's no way of denying sleep unless they have, like, a Lumberry or a Chestoberry. So that makes Gastrodon a lot stronger in my opinion, and Eleki here, you know, checks, you know, the larger threats. And they go with Eleki Gastrodon as well. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Okay, this should be interesting. Like, do we end up just yawning each other? Could be the possibility here. I could Dynamax Gastrodon immediately. I don't love that. Like, I'm down to Yawn into Gastrodon turn 1 and then Protect, and we'll go from there. But if we trade Yawns, this is going to be a really awkward game, I think. Protect. Light Screen Eleki. Okay, that's not great to see either. I actually just Ice Beam into Eleki. Okay. I'm pretty happy about that, all things considered. Here's the crazy thing now, right? Like, you expect either Gastrodon to switch out, or they make a crazy play of, like, Dynamaxing Eleki to max Lightning me. And who do we think Eleki would switch out into, or Gastrodon would switch out into here? Basically, I'm like almost contemplating the idea of Dynamaxing my Eleki and clicking Max Lightning onto the Gastrodon slot to try to snipe in an Yveltal or a Zacian, because I expect one of those to come in. I could just Yawn that slot again, though. Earth Power. I'm just gonna click Thunderbolt here. I don't think we need to max here, but I do expect Gastrodon to switch out. Yep. Oh, they actually brought Landorus. Okay, that's really good information. That's another reason why we don't necessarily want to just click Dynamax with Eleki immediately. Yeah, so you can see already my Gastrodon is really, really strong into this matchup. So, waste of a Thunderbolt, but that's fine. At least we didn't go for the Dynamax. They're gonna Thunderbolt me. That's okay. Really good damage, but I think, like, even just trading Eleki for this information knowledge and this positioning on Gastrodon, I find to be fairly valuable. So, I'll take it. Okay. So, like, the question is, who did they drop between Yveltal and Zacian? I would expect them to drop Yveltal, personally, but can't say that with 100% confidence. Llama and Landorus is now what I'm primarily worried about, but I'm down to go for a Yawn onto that slot, and then a Thunderbolt onto the Eleki slot. They could just Protect Eleki Earthquake here, but no Protect and no Dynamax. Okay. That's pretty good. Light Screen is a little bit annoying, but we can play around it, like, it's fine. Could be Swords Dance here as well, but it's just Earthquake. Okay. Pretty good damage on a Gastrodon, honestly, though. I went for Yawn here mainly because it's like, oh, seeing Life Orb there is so good, actually. But, yeah, like, I could have gone for Ice Beam in that position, but I like Yawn because it, like, almost forces a switch this next turn. They could make the bold play of just staying in, though, right? But now I can actually pivot out into Yveltal. I think the problematic thing for me in this game, though, is, like, Yawn onto my Dynamax option, right? Because, like, they can just bring Gastrodon back out and then click Yawn into the Yveltal slot. Oh, but they actually just bring Zacian out immediately. Okay. So, what? I expect Landorus to maybe switch out into Gastrodon right now. How much bulk do we have on the Yveltal here? I expect it to survive a Behemoth Blade. So, like, what I want to do is click Yawn into the Zacian slot, Dynamax the Yveltal, and then max Airstream into Landorus. Yep, there's a switch. Good. This is also huge, by the way, because it means I get a Life Orb Airstream off into Gastrodon. Now, with Light Screen up, I don't expect it to KO, but that's fine. As long as I don't get one-shot by Zacian here, this is a very favorable turn for me, in my opinion. Because, like, my Zacian's going to be really nice to clean up in this endgame, and once again, it's about getting a speed boost onto Yveltal, so then I outpace the Zacian next turn on their end. You can see how much pressure, like, Yawn applies as a move here. And they Sacred Sword. Okay, fine by me. And Gastrodon very, very importantly survives there. I didn't expect to ever faint there, truthfully. But that was a little bit scary, I guess. But that should put us in a very, very nice spot now. So I get a speed boost onto both here. I do take a Life Orb damage, though. So, like, if you're, I don't know, Advent max attack, I am kind of worried about Behemoth Blade KOing. So now, like, with Zacian, you could just decide a Behemoth Blade Yveltal or make the switch out into Landorus. If you make the switch out into Landorus, it's fine. I think the play I like here most is actually to Ice Beam into Landorus and Max Guard Yveltal. The logic here basically is saying, okay, if you stay in with Zacian and as a last-ditch effort, try to KO Yveltal, you go to sleep, I should win the game from that position. If you pivot out into Landorus, okay, I get the KO onto Landorus. Zacian comes back out, but I still importantly have the speed boost on Yveltal, so I'll be able to outpace you. Oh, but I guess what you could do here is Zacian out into Landorus, protect Gastrodon, bring Zacian back in, then max Gastrodon, which is kind of scary. They stay in though. Perfect. Oh, interesting. I actually went for Blade on a Gastrodon. Okay. I feel like this should just win me the game because now your Zacian guaranteed falls asleep. I can max Darkness your Gastrodon. Maybe I should Airstream here still. Yeah, and they yawn into me. Perfect. Okay, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Another Airstream should KO Gastrodon given how much we did previously. Their Zacian falls asleep. Light screen wears off. Perfect. Okay, so now we've positioned Zacian properly. Okay. Now we can just... Oh, you know what they can do, though? They can Dynamax Gastrodon right now. I think that's the one thing we want to be a little bit careful about. I think Max Airstream here is still worth it, because, like, their Zacian can just stay in, right? For a long period of time. So I'm actually going to Behemoth Blade their Gastrodon slot and Max Airstream it right now. Because Max Gastrodon and then Quake into Zacian concerns me. Although, actually, I don't think it would KO anyway. And they actually just end up protecting. So, yeah, I could have won the game there probably by targeting the Zacian, but that's okay. Yeah, Airstream is still a really significant amount. Sub would have been perfect for me there. I think I should have considered that, actually. Because I think if I sub there, I probably just win. But, yeah, I just honestly don't have that much experience playing with Substitute Zacian. Okay, so we have Foul Play, we have Dark Pulse, we have Oblivion Wing. Dark Pulse should KO Gastrodon here, but they could consider Dynamaxing it. I almost feel pressure to double up onto something once again. But I'm worried then Zacian will just one-shot Yveltal if it wakes up. I mean, Zacian is a pretty huge threat for me here. Like, I want to double into it, but my fear is they wake up immediately. Because Foul Play plus Behemoth Blade should be the knockout onto Zacian. Okay, they don't max or switch out, which is really huge. Cool. So we get rid of that threat immediately. Gastro shouldn't one-shot either of these. It can obviously go for Yawn, which is kind of a problem, but Yveltal can just Foul Play the Landorus, right? And if they didn't go for Yawn here, it should just be game over. But I don't love how I played this endgame, because I feel like I had it locked up, and I feel like I didn't execute it perfectly. Man, Landorus could still win from this position, right? Basically, like, I really didn't want to bank off them getting a one-turn wake-up, but the odds were in my favor there. If I just Dark Pulse Gastrodon and, like, Behemoth Blade Zacian and they stay asleep, I should just win the game. But the double open at Gastrodon was pretty bad. I just got really nervous about Gastrodon maxing, but I think that was a bad fear because the Zacian on our team is bulky, so we should survive a Max Quake anyway, right? Now your play is to just double protect with both Pokemon, right? So I'm down to set up a substitute here. I haven't revealed that yet. Because it'll help me stall out their Dynamax. I guess they could also just Dynamax and Rockfall and protect with Gastrodon is a possibility. Yeah, that would work as well, I guess. I'm down to protect Yveltal this turn. They didn't max Landorus? Oh, I guess you're just going for protect, right? Yeah, okay, I was like, what? Hopefully Gastrodon protects here as well. Perfect. Okay, so I can KO that next turn with an Oblivion Wing, and I get Substitute up here as well. But if I were reading into Protect there, and the Yveltal Protect there was bad on my end, yeah. And the reason for that is because now they have a guaranteed KO onto it with Max Rockfall. So this will kind of come down to how quickly I can wake up with Zacian, I think. Do I expect Life Orb Oblivion Wing to get the KO here? Like, the idea is to heal up and maybe survive Rockfall. I guess if we don't KO, though, I'm in really bad shape. I do expect it to KO here, personally. I'm gonna go for Oblivion Wing, because if we were to survive with Yveltal here, we would just win the game. I played, I made some subpar plays in this endgame. Like, I think I didn't need to be worried about Dynamax Gastrodon so much, and I missed the substitute play either. So if I lose this, like, it's okay. We had plenty of plays where I could have improved on. Honestly, this endgame was kind of weak by me, and my opponent made some very nice plays as well. Hey, Life Orb Oblivion Wing now onto the Gastrodon slot. Yep, that is a KO. Okay, cool. So basically, it's like you expect max Rockfall now into Yveltal, right? If we somehow survive that and the Sand, then I can Foul Play you next turn, and that's obviously a ton of damage. We take our guaranteed first turn of sleep here with Zacian. Oh, they Quake. That's huge. Okay. Maybe it doesn't make a difference, honestly. Because I still need to wake up, right? The only thing is now I could go for a Protect with Yveltal, and if they end up rock falling into that slot, I'd win the game. Basically, like, my opponent needs a 3-turn sleep here, right? Like, if I get a 1 or 2 turn wake up here, I win the game. So 2 turns at the time, I just win outright. The thing is, I could go for a prediction here, and what I could do is Behemoth Blade into Landorus, protect Yveltal. But if they just max Quake my Zacian, I would lose immediately to that. So I'm willing to make the play that wins me the game 2/3 of the time, which is just simply Foul Play into Behemoth Blade. Okay. Nice, and we wake up. Cool. Basically, the idea there is, like, I could actually completely throw the game away if I'm like, oh yeah, you're definitely going to target Yveltal, I protect Yveltal, then they just max Quake me, right? Then the next turn I can't protect either, so then they can just max Rockfall Yveltal, right? And then I'm really leaving it to chance as to whether or not I wake up there. So in this turn I was saying, okay, well, I guess the one thing is, like, they could have Airstreamed with Landorus instead of Rock Falling. So if Life Orb Airstream KO'd Yveltal from the range that I was at, then I'd be in trouble, but I kind of expect to survive there. But I'm not 100% sure, honestly, given that they were Life Orb, so yeah. These are some pretty intense battles. I wish I could have, like, applied Sneasel a little bit more in this one, but I think Gastrodon was too important, and I think it's unacceptable that this game was as close as it was, given the big lead that I had in the early game. And it was mainly off, like, as soon as Zacian got put to sleep from Yawn, I feel like I should have had the game locked up for sure. And I don't love that I put myself in a position where my opponent could have come back, right? So it was off me just doubling into a Protector. That was kind of unnecessary. If I had subbed with Zacian there that turn, we would have been in a really, really strong spot. So I think, like, sub and max Airstream that turn would have been fine, because it's like, okay, if you don't Dynamax, I KO you. If you max, yeah, you're quaking into Zacian, but I substitute, right? So you don't knock me out, and then I'm in a really good spot the next turn. So I think I just missed a clear sub play. I honestly didn't even need to be that worried about Dynamax, since Gastrodons, like, normally aren't super offensive on those teams, and the Zacian we're using here as bulk. So I'd actually expect to survive a Max Quake as well. But I'm glad Sneasel at least got a really, really fun first game here. And overall, yeah, you can see, you know, just the strength once again of the Yveltal Zacian, kind of a Lecky core. And Gastrodon was really influential in this last one as well. But huge props to my opponent, because I thought they found some really, you know, good plays to get back into this one, right? Whether it be, you know, with the Gastrodon with that Protect instead of Dynamaxing, for example, or switching out, and then with Zacian playing a little bit more aggressively and not just switching out into Landorus and going for Behemoth Blade as well. So yeah, I didn't want to leave anything to chance in this game, but in the end, like, I could lose to a triple sleep turn, which is kind of scary. So yeah. Anyway, though, that's going to be it for this one. So thank you so much as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Don't forget to answer the question of the day, and I'll see you all next time. All right, peace.